Well, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for our presentation today, InforOS, Lessons Learned While Implementing. Let's get started. So as a team, JK Seva is driven to transform business processes. We focus on software solutions to meet your organization's HR, payroll, financial, supply chain, and workforce management needs. And we've been a Lawson partner since 1996. Now, before we begin, please know that you're able to submit questions at any time. We'll be answering them in our live Q&A at the end. If you need to hop off this presentation but are still interested, we'll be making it available on our website soon at jkseva.com. We do have a prize today for our attendees. The person that is the most engaged during this presentation will be receiving a gift card. And we'll do a quick overview of the agenda. Again, welcome. We do have a quick disclaimer to go over, a couple Infor notifications that will lead us into our lessons learned. And we do have 5 quick tips for you. And then we'll have our Q&A at the very end. And my name is Emily Fisk. I'm Talent Acquisition and Relationship Manager here at JK Seva, and I'm based out of Chicago. And I want to introduce you to Todd Kastle. He will be our presenter for today. Todd directs our Lawson Infor technical team, and he's an expert at understanding the individual needs of our clients, analyzing challenging technical issues, and how current technology fits into Lawson's market direction. He's also a former Infor technical trainer. And without further ado, we'll get started, and I'll pass this on over to Todd.
Emily, great, thank you. And I want to add my welcome here to that. And yes, that picture was a recent picture of me. For those of you who don't know me or don't know what I look like, that was it. Pre-COVID, I'll say that now. I look a lot different now because I've decided to stop shaving and stop cutting my hair and all of that stuff. So I don't really look like that now. But for those of you, again, haven't met me, that was me. So up until this recent wave of new products, I've been trained installers. I've been the trainer. I've done the technical side of the configurations of every one of the installs. I've designed, written dozens of software products, most of which are direct related to the Infor and Lawson products. And I can go on and on about the different things that I've done. Now, I don't say that to boast or to brag about myself, but to just give a little credibility to this next statement. I believe that InforOS is one of the best products put out by Infor. And at the same time, it's one of the least understood and least known. So before I even get started into that, I'd like to give a little disclaimer. And so I've spoken a few times at different user group meetings, at Inforum, small groups, some very large groups, done some work in the government forum, and I've done a lot of private sessions. So I always like to, I need to start off with what I call a disclaimer. So first of all, I'm CEO of JK Seva, and I do a lot of other things, of course. Emily mentioned that, but I'm not here to actually represent JK Seva directly. JK Seva is also an Infor partner. We're a services partner. We're also a reseller in the public sector. However, I'm also not here to represent Infor. And so I'm not going to talk about that a lot. Our 24-year partnership with Infor, or with Lawson and now Infor. But what I'm here for is I'm actually here for you. And this is a user group meeting. So I'm here to provide you, the users, the facts as I know them, as I've learned, because this is a lessons learned. And the things that I say, I may get my hand slapped over. I've said things in the past that Infor hasn't necessarily agreed with, although they've seen what I'm talking about and they understand it. And I may also get my hand slapped by JK Seva. Yes, I'm CEO of it, but there's a lot of people that work for JK Seva and work with JK Seva, and we'll see what this looks like when I'm all done. And so that's my standard disclaimer. So all that being said, I fortunately get to talk about something that's not too controversial. So I feel a little more safe in this talk compared to my next talk about the cloud later this afternoon. Let's see, I think I'm jumping forward here. All right. So this presentation is about InforOS, lessons learned. And then the subtitle of it is 5 things to prepare for InforOS. I'll start with the lessons learned. Over the last year or so, as JK Seva consultants have attended tech ed sessions, both here and in Europe, and as we've been encouraged by various Infor practice managers to get a jump on InforOS, I've been diving in, learning as much as I can about InforOS. During my self-learning process, I actually attended many webinars, both by Infor and by other partners. I'll get to the lessons learned after I address one topic that every single presentation I've ever been a part of seems to start with before they actually get into InforOS. So I'm going to make it as brief as possible, but you can see here on the screen that it's really in regards to LDAP and moving to LDAP-S. And so here's the, sorry, I'm going to close that down here. I'm going to jump to the notice. And so the notice itself was from February of 2020 of this year. And they said that for this one Microsoft product, it's a requirement to move to the secure LDAP. And I put at the bottom of this, you'll see it outlined in red, but I'm not going to read that part. You can read that while I'm talking. In the notification, Infor does refer to a knowledge base article. It's listed there, 2111967. So in order to support customers, we jumped in, JK Seva jumped in, and started to move customers and figure out how to move customers to LDAP-S. And that article talks a lot about it. Now, moving to LDAP-S is only required if you're using Microsoft's Active Directory Lightweight Directory Services, or ADLDS. So if you're using IBM's Tivoli Directory Services or the newer release Security Directory Services, this is not actually required, but it is recommended. So that being said, please don't tune me out until you hear why. It's true that the move to LDAP-S with either ADLDS or with TDS or SDS can take less than an hour. Every presentation I've been to, they said it's quick, it's easy, and in reality, it is. And all non-Lawson or non-Infor products, the smoke tests work great, but we can't leave it there. We learned that the Infor Lawson Security Engine, we all know of as LASE or Lawson Security Engine or LASE, people just say it like that, makes the process take several more hours. So again, I'm going to keep this short so we can jump right into the InforOS lessons learned. But just a summary, LASE, when it learns that the connection is a secure connection, LDAP-S, it converts the server name or the LDAP-S name, whether it's a host name or a DNS name, to an IP address. Then it attempts to find that IP address as a subject alternative in the trust store. Well, as you can imagine, LASE won't find the IP address since a standard certificate actually can't contain an IP address. So then you contact the external certificate authority company that provided your other certificates, and they won't create a certificate with an IP address in it. So now you're stuck to figure out, how do I get a certificate in my trust store that has an IP address in it? So this may have changed again since the last few times we've done this. I don't believe so, since we've upgraded to the latest versions of the Lawson Infor products, and it's still the same thing. But again, as far as I know, this hasn't changed. So you'll need to contact us for more information on this. And yes, we do have a solution. Again, if you know something different than what we've spent weeks working with Infor support on to try to figure out how to make this work, and they said, yeah, the documentation is lacking that one piece. And so this session is called Lessons Learned. This is one of the lessons we've learned. All right, moving forward. I believe, yes, we are. Hard to believe this, but InforOS has been around since early 2014, right? I mean, February 2014, we're coming up on 7 years. One of my lessons learned is that we've had, in my opinion, one of the best all-company user experience products available to us, and we've barely even touched it. In fact, most companies have not even touched it, or maybe not even heard of it, except little blurbs. So the European market has been using InforOS since it was released. And in fact, the tech ed sessions in Europe are years ahead of us here in the US, at least in regards to this product. Us here in the US, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, we pride ourselves on being the technology leaders in the world. We sure actually missed the mark on this one. My hat is off to those who chose to adopt this technology far in advance of us here in the US. That being said, this presentation, actually, let me say something about that. Each of the lessons learned that I'm going to point out here are going to build on each other. You're going to hear me say, that being said. So I'm going to be referring back to the things I've said prior as I'm moving on. So one of the reasons we're here today is because of an announcement that was sent out on April 13th of this year regarding Infor Mingle version 11. Think it's going to pop up here. Let's see. It did. And so that announcement said that as of March 1st of next year, Infor Federation Services, Infor Mingle, Infor Ion, and Infor Document Management versions 11 and prior will move to what Infor calls sustaining maintenance. This doesn't mean that those versions of the products will be out of support on March 1st, but that they will no longer be maintained. I've had responses to other products that are still supported, but not maintained. And when working with Infor support, and we're required to do an upgrade, when we ran into a bug, since they're no longer doing work on the products to fix them, they're just in what they call sustaining maintenance. And so as of March 1st, you're still going to be able to use the version 11 products and even previous versions of it, of the InforOS, Infor Mingle, Document Management, Ion. But if you run into an issue that can't be resolved through the normal support process, you're going to have to upgrade. Now, from my experience in working with customers who have run into this emergency installation and implementation of a product whose version has gone into what's called sustaining maintenance, it's not a fun process for you. It's not a fun process for your users. In fact, it's just much better to plan ahead and move to those newer versions. Well, that being said, one of our lessons learned is that InforOS has been around for 7 years. And again, here in the US, we're mostly ignorant about the product, and it's highly underutilized. We've also learned from Infor announcement sent out in April that we have until March 1st of next year before there will be no more enhancements or fixes to a few of the version 11 products. That announcement affects most of us. Now, at least those who are using Infor Mingle, Federation Services, Ion, and Document Management. My next lessons learned is that most consulting firms also don't know a whole lot about InforOS. So I'm not faulting any of them. Actually, I should say I'm not faulting any of us. This is a 7-year-old product that has not yet gained ground in the US. So we haven't needed to know much about it. The vendor-sponsored events that I've attended brush the surface of InforOS, and I had hopes of some deep dives into the product. We never quite got deep into InforOS during those sessions. So I hope to dive deeper into InforOS during this presentation and to allow some time at the end for a Q&A. In planning this out, I realized a deep dive on a presentation with such a broad audience may not actually be possible, or at least not as productive as I'd like. Now, I'll explain why. Actually, I'll explain why in a minute. Let me go over something else first. While I've done as much research as I've been able to prior to the session, and I've installed and done some configuration of InforOS several times, I've only brushed the surface of InforOS. With hundreds of pages of documentation, conflicting information from various sources, and a product that can do so much, I'm left sometimes with more questions than answers. One of our consultants has attended the Tech Ed sessions on InforOS in both Europe and in the US, and while working on projects has found himself pretty much confined to the needs of the project. That's how most consultants work, most consulting firms work. You end up with a person who knows a lot about a product, but pulled into a project that focuses on just one area. In this area here, for that one person I refer to as the burst component of the product. So with all of the new and upgraded products from Infor and the need to meet this never-ending demands to move forward, and the confusion of the cloud versus CloudSuite versus on-prem, hosted, and working with the need for managed services, it's really hard for any one firm to know everything about InforOS. If you can join our last session of the day, you'll understand more about this confusion, and I hope you can join that. So that being said, the description of this session has a lot to say. InforOS is so much more than just a replacement for Infor Mingle 11, more than just a user interface. In fact, Infor calls InforOS a user experience product. That means it can be used simply as a replacement for Infor Mingle 11, and a replacement for Infor Federation services. It can also be used as a full organization user portal and adapt most of your single sign-on products, whether Infor product or other third-party product, into a single page. InforOS provides for Infor product user maintenance with the ION VODs or business object documents, provides for data warehousing and dashboards, and some reports with Data Lake and Burst, security token services to allow authentication through InforOS, and you've maybe heard the term InforOS as STS, integration with third-party non-Infor products. It can even do some pre-thinking for you with Coleman AI. And so there are a lot of things this product can do. I think the designers of InforOS went down to the corner bells and whistles store and just loaded up their cart. It seems that InforOS as a user experience product can do as little as you need it to do, or it can do as much as you want it to do. So you can start within a week or so of having just the basics of the product running, and then spend the remainder of your Infor related career designing and developing more and more complex and informative and interactive pages. So how about a screenshot or two? So what we have here is just a very, very basic screen. This is one I recently designed, super difficult screen. Took all of a few minutes. And so what you have here is your basic login screen with a couple different ways you can get to the Infor Lawson S3. And so click either one of those and everything's set up correctly on your S3 side, and it's going to take you right in because you're already signed in to InforOS. So it's going to log you right in and pull up the screen. If you haven't seen the new Lawson S3 portal version 10.1 instead of the 10.0, the 10.1 looks a lot like this, so the look and feel is going to be very similar. As soon as I would click and go into there, which I'm not going to show you right now, it would actually look just like the InforOS screen. Let's do a little more complex screen. And so I added a few other elements to the screen. Yes, that is an embedded website inside a web page. I realize you don't really need a page in a page since you're actually in a browser. However, think about a specifically designed corporate page that gives you information for the day. Can be user specific since you're signed in to the browser and the browser knows who you are. And so in this case here, our JK Seva page is up here at jkseva.com if you want to go check that out. I added actually an animated GIF here, so those guys are actually jumping up and down, giving a high five. The same menu item is on there, only have one. I can add dozens or hundreds. And there's a little area for notes. I mean, you can type whatever you need to in there. Again, these are just a few of the widgets available. There are, I actually didn't count them. I'm going to guess about 100, maybe more. And you have the opportunity to write your own. And so there's a programming language that's set out there where you can design your own widgets to do really whatever you need to. So one more page I'm going to show you as a more complex page. Yes, the Infor Concierge page. This was designed and developed with InforOS. And so everything you see whenever you jump into the Concierge page that Infor put out there is InforOS at its best. So there are many, many more things you can do with this. I'm not going to get into how all of those work. I was going to show a customer-specific page that had some burst embedded in it with some KPIs and some reports that can be run, but that's all covered under non-disclosure agreements, so I actually couldn't do that. However, this is a really good sample of what it looks like. All right, that being said, we've talked about LDAP-S, and it's totally unrelated to InforOS, but required if you're using Microsoft LDAP products and recommended if you're using IBM's LDAP products. We know InforOS has been around for almost 7 years. It's been around for 7 years and nobody really is using it or knows much about it. And it's definitely not being used to its full potential. InforOS is mostly new to us here in the US, and everyone is still learning what it can do. And developing some best practices for implementation utilization. So we're trying to figure out what we can recommend to our clients and our partners on best practices. So there isn't really a best practices document yet. InforOS is more than just a replacement for Mingle 11, for Infor Mingle 11, and it can do a whole lot. We covered quite a bit, but we did not dive too deep into it. I'm not really sure how deep we can actually go in a session like this. There's so many various needs. One thing we do know is that by March of next year, anyone using one of the related version 11 products will be in a sustaining maintenance position. So we'll need to jump on this really soon. That being said, it really doesn't take a lot to stand up an InforOS system with some basic configuration. So later when I cover some tips in the preparing for InforOS, I'll cover what you need to know just to prepare to get ready for the InforOS platform. For now, in this lessons learned section, I'm going to just let you know what I've learned. So anyone who has installed or upgraded any Infor or Lawson product know installing most, if not all, of the product is more of an art form than it is a science. I won't focus on any single product, but if you've performed any installs, you know it can go very smoothly or the opposite of very smoothly. We've had installs on 2 separate identical servers for various products where one goes almost exactly as planned, and the second one, you spend a few weeks working through issues with Infor support, only to have to re-image the server and start from scratch. This has been a reality since version 9 and continues even today, except with InforOS. I was actually surprised, actually pleasantly surprised, that the prerequisites, when they're met, and you have no errors in the prerequisite test tool. Actually, there's a tool you run that tests to make sure you've got the prerequisites set up correctly. And another important thing, you disable all antivirus products that are running on the server. And then when you install InforOS, it just installs and it works exactly as designed. You come up with a blank slate, meaning there's a single user in the system inside Infor Federation Services, which is part of InforOS, and no home page. You've got a blank slate. So that's when the creativity starts. That's when you can start doing what you want to do. So adding applications, both Infor and non-Infor, and creating home pages. Those are done by the administrator. So you also need to either load your users or pull them in from wherever they are located in your organization. The process from start to finish to have a basic system ready for configuration takes about a week or so. So the configuration ongoing can take anywhere from another week to several months or even a year. We'll talk about that in our tips. Again, InforOS can be very basic or it can be very complex. It's really up to you. I'm going to jump right into the 5 tips. I'm watching the clock here. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to move through these pretty quick so that we do have some time for questions. I will make sure you know, type your questions in the chat window. We've got Sarah Swanson or Emily Fisk are going to be in here watching these. I'm going to ask those questions if you have them. All right, 5 tips for preparing for InforOS. First one. Right now, you have an opportunity. So if you've been around Lawson, the Lawson Infor world for any time, you know that for the most part, the products are one or even several technology releases behind the rest of the world. So I totally understand there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of things we do tested when moving up from Windows Server 2008, 2012, all the way up to 2016 and 2019. There's a lot of things that have to be done on the Windows side. Moving on the AIX side from 7.1 to 7.2, and as AIX progresses, even in the Linux world, there's a lot to be tested. I imagine it can be daunting. So I remember years ago when the Lawson products were not supported on virtual systems, and nobody actually really cared that. They just installed them anyway. I remember when clients moved to newer releases of Oracle and SQL Server before they were approved by Lawson and now Infor to move to. I've done many installs on newer technology before it was ready for general availability, and almost every time the product worked, the product functioned exactly as designed. So with InforOS, you don't have to worry about this. It's already running on the latest technology. So now, with the need to get away from technology that it has itself gone into extended maintenance and into virtual servers, whether you have them in-house, remotely hosted, Amazon Web Services, Google, Azure, VMware, VBox, Hyper-V, and many others, you can finally start to plan your move forward to new technology. Another tip, get all of this stuff that you have out there that's sitting around on your servers upgraded to the latest version, and make sure they're all on ADFS and ready to move forward. So we have let me look through. I'm sorry, looking through my notes. Take that time you have if you've got technology that's still running on the Windows Server 2008 to lift and shift this to the latest technology and the latest Lawson core technology, latest landmark technology. We've done this for clients more times than I can even count. We've even written programs to to migrate the landmark IPA data from version 10 to 11, since you can't do an in-place upgrade to version 11 on Windows Server 2008. You have to do a new install on newer technology, then migrate the data. We performed hundreds of resource manager and gen migrations to make sure that a lift and shift, even on a different platform technology, is smooth and seamless. So it's possible, and a whole lot more cost effective than you'd think to do a lift and shift to new technology. So join us for our last session of the day to talk about hosting and managed services that we do at JK Seva, and to learn what other options you may have, or reach out to us directly. In a nutshell, I'd recommend taking the time now to get everything updated. I'm going to move even quicker through these next few items. Plan ahead. Make sure you've got time to plan out what you want InforOS to look like. Like I said, you can do a very basic replacement for Infor Mingle 11 and for Federation services with a few items on the screen. And you can also make this a complete organization platform, but plan ahead. Don't just jump in and start designing and throwing things out there, because it's going to just be a bit overwhelming. So my recommendation for the next one says, start out small and then go live with it. Then build on that foundation. So as you put your plan together, just plan on this basics. Plan on just a replacement for Infor Mingle 11 and for IFS 11, and if you're using document management and ION, the replacement for that, and then start to build on the many aspects that you can within InforOS. And then know what you're getting into. I put this here because our marketing and sales people said I had to have 5 tips. And so they put it out there, and I had to have 5 tips, and it's on the announcement, it's on everything that went out there, and I didn't have 5 tips. So, you know, I bought this thinking maybe I could think of another one, but what I came up with for the 5th tip is when you're jumping into the products that are being offered by Infor, know what it is you're getting a hold of and use it to its full capability. And so for now, and so we have a few more minutes left for question and answer, I'm going to jump forward here. I think Emily is going to take it from here. Is that true?
Yes, it is. All right, thanks, Todd, for the presentation. We're going to transition over into the Q&A, so submit your questions if you have any more. But we will get started. First question is, how does it work if we have some products on-prem and some in Infor Cloud?
Emily, thank you. That's a really good question. I do need to say I don't have direct experience with that. However, this is lessons learned, so I tell you what I've learned from others. My learning from others is doesn't work all that great, and so it was either all in the Infor Cloud or all on-prem. And again, the on-premises consists of hosted environments as well, since they're tied together a little differently. And so what I found, what I've learned, is that it's really a firewall issue. It's getting the data to talk back and forth between the Infor Cloud and your own on-prem products. That's what I found.
Awesome. Okay, next question. I've heard we can use InforOS as STS instead of ADFS. Can you talk a little about that?
Oh, sure I can. Yeah, that's a good one, because when we first jumped into this, we were trying to figure out how to make that work. In the presentations that I went to, it was a big topic. Nobody ever talked about how it could be done, just that it was a thing that could be done. And then diving into the documentation and then implementing the product, it's required to have ADFS installed before you can install InforOS. And so it's already there, so it's not a direct replacement for it. But Well, and at the same time, some of the other products that are out there aren't quite supporting the InforOS as STS, and so they're not quite there yet. But once InforOS is installed and up and running, there's actually a way you can switch it over to use InforOS as the security token services instead of ADFS. Haven't clicked that button yet, haven't done it, but looking forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, and then another question, does InforOS cover ISS as well?
There's user provisioning through the ION BODs inside InforOS, but it doesn't have embedded into what we call ISS or the Infor Security Services. However, you can simply add that application into your list of applications in InforOS, and it pops up the screen just like you would see it on any other browser.
Awesome.
I think we're getting ready to wrap up here. Are there more? Because this went much faster than I thought it was going to go.
I don't think that we have any more.
All right, so Emily, how about this? Since we want to let people get onto their other sessions that they're going to need to get to, do you want to go ahead and just wrap it up real quick?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I would like to invite you to look us up on our LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Someone did ask where they could access the recording. We will be making it available soon on our website at jkseva.com. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube page at jkseva Inc. All right. If you have any additional questions, we'll be in our booth for the rest of the day. Feel free to stop by. Or you can email any more questions to Beth Wallace, who is our Director of Business Development. Her email address is bwallace@jkseva.com. We hope that our presentation was helpful and we were able to answer all of your questions, and have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for attending. I'll see you at the next session.